Hi everyone, my name is James Feeney. Welcome to or back to my channel. Today I was dusting off my crystals, making sure everything was arranged and clean, given the circumstances where I know a lot of us are indoors more or just staying home, and that was something I was up to, so it made me think about the crystals I use, how I use them, when I use them, which ones are my favorites. So I wanted to film a video showing you guys some of my favorite crystals, or at least the ones that I find that I use a lot, and how I use them, so whether that be in readings and for what purposes, so what correspondences and energies I would draw from, and why maybe they're my favorite, and yeah, how I use them, all that good stuff. So I have them all to the side of me. For some crystals where it's more so the type of crystal that I like, I picked more example pieces, because a few of them I would use larger pieces, but they're heavier and they're downstairs, and I'm filming this video upstairs, and I didn't want to carry like heavy things. So I'll get into all that, but I guess I will just jump right into it. And I'll start with one. Well, this one was just at the front of the line. And this is a Selenite tablet, slab, whatever you want to call it, just a square of selenite. And I got this a while back just because I guess many believe it to be able to charge crystals. So sometimes when I feel like I've been using a crystal a lot, or I've just cleansed it and it's not near, say, like a full moon, or there are some crystals I don't like to put in the sun, like smoky quartz and citrine, because over time it will essentially like bleach the crystal. So in a pinch, I guess you could say, I'll use this to charge crystals, or there are some that I know, like when I'm going to be using them, I'll leave them on this for a little bit beforehand. So the Selenite tab, likewise, I just like selenite in general. I have candle holders that I think I've shown before. I think that it's a great crystal to have for just anything, and like I find that you can purchase it in odd shapes, like for candle holders and for slabs and towers, and it's not too expensive, and it's just very positive, it feels like. So I like to have it around for readings and just sporadically, and having in mind to sort of just place it around for positive energy and high vibes. So selenite's a big one. I chose the Selenite tablet or slab to show you guys because it's one that's kind of an unsung hero, but I use it in conjunction with a lot of my other crystals, so we'll start with this guy. Next, I have this Jade palm stone, and of the same vein, I guess I'll also pull out this pyrite palm stone, and I would say that I use these both in magic and in readings. If it's a reading regarding where I know that the focus for a client or myself is going to be about career, job, actions I'm going to take in life, endeavors that I'm going to pursue, I'll use these just because I connect pyrite, and I know a lot of us do, with financial abundance, prosperity, income, resources, and jade with good fortune and luck. So if you're getting a reading from me and that's a focal point, it's likely that I'll have chosen at least one of these to be in your reading, and I will do the same for myself. And I like to have them also for magic, so when I'm doing anything to in connection with prosperity, or job and career related things, or just resources, and it's magic like that, I will probably have these around or incorporate them in some way. And I keep them on my divine feminine altar because a lot of the way that I perceive the Sheila gig, who I work with, is that she does have this sort of aspect to her that has to do with prosperity and abundance, so they're there for her as well. And next, and these two are also usually sitting on that altar at any given time, is a Kampala Jasper and a piece of raw emerald. And I would say I use the raw emerald the most. I really like to use this one in meditation. It's connected with, most believe, like a standard correspondence, I should say, or like what you would find in a book or something, would connect it to the heart chakra, and I tend to agree with that. And so for me, the heart chakra is one that throughout my life I think I've had to work on the most, and that I feel a very strong affinity and connection with, because I feel like I have the most work to do there. So for me, this is my favorite heart chakra related or heart centered stone or crystal, and the energy. Also, if you're getting a reading for me and there's anything to do with love, even if it's just a general reading, there's a high likelihood that when in doubt, I will choose either this or rose quartz, just to bring some compassion and heart-centered energy to the space, which I think never hurts. So I'll use it in readings for myself and others, but otherwise I would say I mostly use it in meditation and hold it just while trying to clear my head or recite sort of like mantras, things like that. So I think raw emerald is up there. It's definitely in my top 5 favorite stones just overall. Yeah, it's a great one, and if you get a chance, I think it is well worth it. Although I don't know, I haven't seen many people speak about raw emerald, but and I forget how hard it is to acquire, but I don't remember it being too difficult. I think I got mine on Etsy, this little one, for not too much. So, and yeah, a lot of my crystals I've gotten on Etsy. I find that you can get really good deals if you're shopping on eBay, and for people who are just getting rid of or downsizing their collection or no longer have the space or they're moving, I just usually, if you keep your eye out for certain stones, you're gonna find good deals on, say, Etsy and eBay. So I would recommend checking them out. Also, your local retailers. I know that I do readings at a shop that is primarily in the market of selling crystals. So supporting your local businesses is also another great one. And the one by me is really great. I think the one by me has higher quality pieces than the ones that I've found for myself outside of. So there's a give and take of the kinds of pieces you're looking for and the quality of a crystal you're looking for. So do keep that in mind. And then next is the Kampala Jasper. And I got this one when I was in Italy, and I was told actually that it was moss agate, which I'm now nearly 100% certain it's not. I mean, I'm wearing moss agate, and I really do like moss agate, but this is a Kampala Jasper as far as I'm aware, based on what I know. So, and another thing is I like to wear crystals, so moss agate. We're very grounded today, tapping into that natural energy, that healing energy. But yeah, Kampala Jasper to me is very detoxifying, so I will use this often in meditation if I don't feel like I'm feeling so well. Likewise, if I've had maybe a few drinks the night before or something like that, and the next morning I'm kind of run down, I might keep this on me. I feel like it really detoxifies my body, and helps with that, or energetic detoxification as well. I wouldn't say I incorporate this one in readings so often, but it's nice for meditation and to have on hand. And for health, so if I'm doing any magic related to health, and that sort of clearing, then I will draw upon this and use this. Next, of the same vein with the heart chakra, just a raw chunk of rose quartz. This one's a bit lighter. I know with this lighting it's hard to even tell it's pink. It's not exactly like a high quality piece, but yeah, rose quartz is a pretty multi-purpose. There's never a circumstance that I can think that it's bad in that I wouldn't benefit from it in some way. So yeah, I use this one in a lot of readings when I just am not sure exactly what I want to use, because it's always helpful and I find that it has something of benefit to bring to a situation. But yeah, I would say as far as for myself and meditation and heart-centered things, I would go for the raw emeralds first. And then I have like a big chunk of rose quartz, but that's not so portable. Well, it is, but it's not easy to move around. So I like to keep that one around if I know I'm going to be in a space for a while and really want it to bring in that energy. But for readings and things, I would use a chunk like this. Oh my god, I have to speed this up. Next is Labradorite. Labradorite, I would say, is up there in my top 5 stones overall. This is a small, somewhere between a tumbled and palm stone size that my sister got me for Christmas, and I think I use this one the most. I keep it on my altar, in my hand for magic and for empowering. Sometimes in readings that I think are centered more around empowerment and personal power, I will bring this into a reading for myself and others. So that's how I draw from it, and I feel like it just strengthens, say, magic and things that we exude from within energetically. So Labradorite. Next, I just picked a little piece of amethyst. This is just a cute one. And overall, I would say I like amethyst as more of an environmental piece, if that makes sense. So I keep it around without actively, say, touching it and using it in things. I don't think I draw on it so much for readings or magic either, but I will keep it close to my bed for dreams and protection and sleep. I do a lot of like quote-unquote dream work and things that happen there and recording my dreams, and I feel like amethyst is really, that's where I find it shines the most, is when I'm asleep. So I'll keep usually a piece that's a little bit bigger than this, but very close to where my head actually is when I sleep. Next is, this is rainbow fluorite. It's kind of somewhere between green, it's like more of a grayish color, but it's an interesting piece. And I would say I use this actually a lot for more analytical pursuits, studying, memory, retention. So actually when I'm reading and journaling, a lot of times I will keep this guy around or hold on to him. If I'm ever doing a reading, I would say potentially when it's something more career and path related, where we feel like I need to like stimulate the mind and we're really working on those fields, I might incorporate it into a reading for myself or another, but I would say more often than not when I'm just reading or journaling, it's nice to have around. Next I have, I'm gonna mispronounce this, aragonite, I think it's aragonite, there's like an extra A in there. So this is just a little piece, and I would say it's kind of like a underrated one for me because I often forget about it, but I use it for more communication and relationship oriented energies to facilitate with that. So if I'm doing a reading, and I wouldn't say necessarily love, I would say relationships of like all sorts, and the focus being the communication. So a great Mercury retrograde stone, that's a good tip, one of these. And also if I think that the reading that I am conducting for someone or for myself is centered around various parties and interactions, and communication is a key factor, it's good to have this around because I feel like it facilitates that. Likewise, if I'm in a situation where I feel like I need to be an effective communicator and say I'm meditating and that's something that's upcoming, I might bring this into it. So great for that. And then next we'll do, this is a little raw citrine point. And I brought this one up. I have a larger citrine point and it's one of my most prized pieces. I think natural citrine is really difficult to find and it's quite expensive, and citrine's one of my top 5 stones. We have emerald, labradorite, citrine, they're all in that top 5. And I think that the majority of the time I see citrine, I get really sad because I know it is heat treated, where it's heat treated amethyst, and it's very it can sometimes be very easy to spot, and the quality and the effects of it to me are just not the same. So I might have one little piece that I'd gotten years back that's heat treated amethyst citrine, but I don't like to go for that, and so this is a natural citrine point, and usually the natural ones aren't that bright, vibrant yellow, but actually the bigger piece I have downstairs is a little bit closer and more yellow than this one. This one's a bit more smoky looking, but it's usually when you have that frosty white very quickly and a little point of yellow, it's going to be that heat treated amethyst. So I do put a lot of emphasis and value on my citrine pieces, but I bring these in for myself for positivity and happiness and to uplift my spirits when I'm feeling down, as I'm sure many do. And when I'm doing a reading that's centered around, say, personal fulfillment and happiness, and those being very key points that we want to focus on, how to achieve those, and we're looking at things like that, I would say that's when I would bring citrine into a reading. Likewise, if I feel like the client is in a space where we're trying to get them out of more sad emotions or heavier emotions, citrine often brings that levity and lightheartedness to something. So I use it for myself in readings and for others in readings and in meditation, and just to have around and to touch and hold as a reminder. So citrine's a big one for me. And then next we'll do, and I've shown this guy before, but smoky quartz. This is like my bigger point, and it's a really dark piece of smoky quartz. This one to me is like extra potent, and I'm using it all the time in readings. I mentioned that I like to bring it to, say, events, or when I'm doing readings, to tap the deck on to clear it, to create almost like a a bubble where outside energies don't penetrate, where negative energies are siphoned off. So smoky quartz for me has a lot to do with the absorption of negative or transmutation of negative energy. So I know that it's a bit grounding, but I tend to use it more so in readings and magic as a combatant or shield against the negative, and this is probably the one I use the most. So we love me, I love me, we love me. Some smoky quartz. Again, I think smoky quartz, not again, but I think smoky quartz is a top 5 for me. So now we have 4 out of 5 of my top 5. So yes. And then we will go into have this blue apatite. And I think both this, and I'll actually bring in blue calcite, which I think I favor blue calcite more often. I love to use these in meditation for more astral travel, so that's actually when I would draw upon these when I really want to get myself into a different state of consciousness, like altered state, or when I want to spend a lot of time traveling. So I value blue apatite and blue calcite for that. I would say blue apatite feels a little bit more emotional to me, whereas blue calcite is a little bit more objective feeling, or cold, but cold in a precise way where it's going to get the job done with no fuss and nothing else to account for. Whereas sometimes when I use blue apatite, I feel like emotions enter the playing field, and there's times when I want that and there's times when I don't, which is when I would say choose one or the other. And for me, their primary purposes are in meditation and astral travel. So those are those. Actually, blue calcite, I had a period where I was really into blue calcite. I mean, I still am. I use this one the most, but I have more of like a bigger slab, and then I have a really big piece, or really big, a decently large piece. And if I'm really looking to meditate and astral travel, I'll pull out the bigger piece and keep that close to me when when I meditate. I'm actually usually laying down because it's distracting for me to try to like have proper posture, and to me, my mind is focused on that and the physical sensation, and it's hard to overcome. So when I'm laying down, I'm able to meditate better. So I'll put the big piece of blue calcite near me, or kind of like put them all around me. Okay, next we'll go into sodalite. Just a little piece, and then a more palm stone sized lighter piece. And for me, sodalite has a lot more to do with not just communication, but actually I do tend to find that, at least with the darker pieces like this, it affects the third eye, the intuition. So I will sometimes use these in readings, more so actually for myself than for the client. But I mean, it's for the client in that it is supposed to, and I feel sometimes will bump up my intuition or the way I can perform as a reader. So while it's not meant to directly affect the client or the querent, I think it affects me as a reader, and it can add some potency to certain readings. So that's when I would draw upon this, and if you see that in a reading, that's why that might be. Next, I have this sectarian piece, more of a tower kind, not tower, but has like the kind of stand. And for me, this one I tend to use more so for myself than others. I would say I've used it in a handful of readings, really when I think we're working on the self and piecing that back together, investigating various aspects, and when, I mean, in if you're familiar with shamanic terms, soul retrieval, things like that. So I value it for that, in sort of piecing together disparate parts of the self and the soul. I also value it for the change. I feel like it's like the impetus of change in some ways, or a proponent, a catalyst for change. So that's how I would use that. This one's kind of harder to describe, but it's more of a feeling than anything else. Next is a little guy, a little piece of variscite, and I would say, let me think. Yeah, I think variscite's the next and final of my top 5 stones. So I was torn between this and the blue calcite, but I think variscite currently is in that top 5 spot, within the top 5 circle. And something about it just feels very old, like I'm tapping into whenever I like would say work with any of these crystals, out of all of them, this, and whenever I'm like working with variscite, it just feels like I'm drawing on the most old and primitive energy from the earth or from the cosmos, wherever, just old energy in general. And it feels a bit heart-centered, but there's something almost more to it that I can't quite describe. I know that I use it in readings for others in random times just when it feels right, and it's very hard for me to articulate or even fully understand why it is I feel compelled to ever use it, but there are a lot of times when I will put it in a reading for one reason or another that I sometimes don't know. And this is just a small piece. Variscite does tend to be a bit pricey. I know that this little chunk wasn't even, it was kind of expensive for the size it is, and yeah, but small but potent, and I really like it. Next, okay, we're nearing the end. I know this is longer than I thought it was going to be. Just a hematite palm stone, and I tend to use this for grounding for myself after, say, meditation, astral travel, in magic. Whenever I'm done performing something energetically, it's nice to just sit and hold this. Likewise, if I'm sometimes like working with, say, electronics a lot or things that just feel like they're draining me, I almost use this as a buffer, but I would say it's definitely one for grounding, meditation, and sometimes even after readings for myself and others, if I feel like it was a really strenuous, energetically taxing reading, this is what I would say hold on to after. Next is a bigger piece of carnelian, and this one I would say that I use actually a lot in readings or keeping by near me in readings when I'm looking for self-empowerment, trying to empower somebody else, or trying to have them sort of find their inner power. It feels very fiery, it feels very like there's an ignition to it, and so for readings revolving around self-love, self-empowerment, agency, taking charge, that's when I would have this around. Likewise in, say, magic or things, like when I'm working with more the element of fire and what that entails, and trying to usher that into my life or into a spell or a working, this would be a good one to have around. Next we'll do, and I keep it in this holder, and it's just a polychrome jasper, but I saw this, it's in the shape of an egg, and it kind of reminded me of a flame, although it's more of a red, like a brown red than a true bright red. Something about it just feels like this smoldering flame, and I almost use it to symbolize myself and my inner flame. And I still do, but I used to work very closely with the concept of an inner flame, and I had sort of these astral experiences where I was kind of had almost like a guide or being that I would check in with who felt very tied to that concept. So I still have this, and I would say that that's something I need to maybe get back into more, but that at a certain given time was very important for me and my my path, my growth, my progression. So that's this one. Next is a black obsidian sphere that I keep on this little wooden thing, and I would say I use this for scrying, for shadow work, for confronting abstract things that I don't necessarily recognize so well with my conscious mind, but symbols that I might interpret or at least jot down to note later, or potentially something where I would say zone out and maybe try to get myself into that alpha state. And it feels very not profound. Well, it is profound, but it feels heavy, and so it's not one that I would just leave out. There was a time when I used to leave it out just to have it there, and now I kind of put it away because it does feel like it demands attention when it's around, and it can become distracting, and it's just a little bit strange. So yeah, I really enjoy it, but I don't think it's good to constantly keep out. I bring it out when I know I want to use it, and that's how we have a relationship. And then this is just clear quartz. I picked this one. It's a little bit almost like a wand to me. I will use it for the directing of energy or things like that, so I really enjoy this one in that way. I'll sometimes use it as a bit of a wand. Likewise, I like clear quartz. I have a bunch of pieces I didn't bring in, but clear quartz is one that I'll always have around for almost anything, readings, meditations, workings. So it is quite common if I'm doing a reading to have a piece of clear quartz there, especially if it's, say I would take the raw emerald and I really want to bolster the effects of, say, that heart-centeredness, and we're really doing a reading that has to do with love and self-love, and I want it to really just be amplified. I might, instead of adding, say, rose quartz, I might add just clear quartz to almost amplify whatever the effect of the other crystal is. So there's that as well. Next I forget the technical name of this, and I know sometimes it's referred to as peacock ore, with that iridescence, the gold and the blue, and I would just say this is my only little piece of the sky, and I'll sometimes pop it in my pocket. It's not quite the same feeling as citrine, but I would say it's almost like when you stumble upon something really nice and like, it's like when you get happy about the little details in life. This, I think, reminds me about that. So like, I feel like when I'm carrying it around, I'm more cognizant of valuing the little things and finding things to be happy and grateful for. So if I'm ever almost like down and out or in a cynical mood, I might pop this in my pocket and hopefully turn the mood around throughout a day, and it's kind of a slow progression. Next I believe this is either an agate or a jasper of some type, and it kind of looks like an eye, and I picked this one out at a store, and I picked a similar looking one, not quite the same but similar, for my sister, and we call them like sibling stones, and so we like to think that it's like a connector, and she has her sibling stone wherever she is and I have mine. So, and I like to think of it because it's like an eye, it's almost like we can see to each other or something like that. So that's that one. And then nearing the end, this would just be black tourmaline, and this is just a long thin piece, and I will use this similarly to how I would use smoky quartz. I would say I mostly use this for absorption of not negative energies. I would say this feels more protective, where smoky quartz feels like it's siphoning like excess energies, negative energies, and then this one just feels like it's overall protective. That's just the feeling I get, and like it creates a barrier, and I will use this both in readings and for myself if I feel like there's any sort of circumstance where I might need protection or want extra protection. And I'm trying to think of the types of readings I would use this in. I think this might have to do more with the environment, actually. So if I'm doing readings and it's not, say, a Skype or an email reading, but I'm reading somewhere and I almost want to set up and create this barrier that's impenetrable, I'll maybe bring this and place it down so that I know that my area is almost carved out energetically. And then I'll bring up the last two. This guy is, I believe, just a form of jasper, if I'm not mistaken. And I use this one mostly just for symbolism with the divine feminine, and it just feels very earthy and feminine, and like I'm tapping into older concepts of what femininity is and how it has progressed, and like the trail, almost like this linear trail of that. So yeah, and I'll keep that on my divine feminine altar. And then, and this one's really cool. I don't know if you can see, but we have this, but there's quartz growing in these cracks, and even in like these spots you see there's like quartz inclusions all along, so I find that to be really cool. And then our final piece, this one I don't know what it is. It's just, I found it at the beach by me, and I think it looks a lot like a moon, a fat crescent, and I will use it in conjunction with that to symbolize the moon or to draw on that power. It just feels very lunar, and something about it just feels good and right. In my head, it's waxing, so that's how I function and work with it, would be that gain, that growth, that achievement where we're just almost close to being full. So if I'm setting about a goal, or I just need that last push to get somewhere or to manifest something, I would draw on this guy, and I don't know what kind of rock or stone it is, but it's more about the shape and where I found it in that circumstance and how I interact with it in that way. So that's the final one I'm gonna show you guys. And so those were a few of my favorite crystals or types of crystals and how I might work with them. If you guys work with crystals, I'd love to know a few of your favorites and specifically how you work with them, when you would use them, how you came across them. So I'm curious. Let me know in the comments if you want. And if you liked this kind of video, subscribe, physically like by clicking that button. And until next time, bye guys.